Show care. On a foggy day across a man-made lake, a Native American noticed a majestic bald eagle fly approximately 24 feet above him on a northwest course at approximately 12 miles an hour. This male eagle perched itself at the top of a tropical tree that had been intentionally humanly planted some 36 years ago. As the man looked more closely, he noticed that the male's partner was perched in the nearly identical tree to its north. The man performed a 240-degree observation of the habitat. There were 6 other species of birds within 144 yards of the pair of eagles. Hummingbirds, coots, geese, cormorants, ducks, and one brave heron shared the habitat with the eagles on this day. The man looked to see if he could tell if the other species noticed the majestic pair. He used his senses to see if he could tell if the other species knew the eagles were present, as those carnivores represented the top of the food chain for birds. And the man knew that the cognitive ability of the eagle was far closer to that of the vulture than to the hummingbird. The eagles remained in place for close to 48 minutes. The other 6 represented species also remained in place for the same 48. The man theorized without any empirical possibility that the other species could see the eagles through the fog. But the 6 other species recognized that the eagles were not currently hungry, somehow. Even though all were potential prey, they sensed no fear on this day. The eagles made their exodus, the female to the north and the male to the south, each surveying a different sector of their territory. The 6 other species paid no attention and went on about their business after the eagle's departure. 48 minutes later, the fog lifted. Had the eagles remained any longer, they would have been in plain sight. The outcome of the 96-minute display may have turned out differently if the eagles could have been seen more clearly. On this day, the eagles showed their positive side. The eagles exhibited strength greater than that of any of their 6 peers. They knew that when they became hungry, they would find exactly what they needed and handle the matter themselves without help from any other species. We sometimes forget what eagles represent. We know them to be strong and arguably the highest in the avian food chain. Eagles are very seldom eaten by any other creature. The strength of the eagle is a given. What we don't know about them, because we don't live as eagles, might surprise us. The eagles in this true story showed care for the other species. The male was much larger than his mate, and he needed her in order for species survival. The male thus needed to provide for both he and his bride, and any offspring that should happen to come along. His habitat was where he hunted for food for his family, with diet consisting primarily of fish in the lake. The eagle liked the flavor of the fish better than that of bird, according to his specific palate. He cared for his habitat as he knew that many of the other species of birds needed to thrive for the eagle's habitat to be suitable to him. For example, the hummingbirds helped the fauna grow by their unconscious fertilization of the plant world. The geese and cormorants provided fertilizer that eventually found its way into the lake due to the nature of the local weather. The eagle's future food, the fish, lived on the underwater plants that grew due to the fertilization process. The habitat worked for all species included, even the humans who lived on the edge of the lake. People enjoyed watching the habitat as it fulfilled a sense of pleasure to them. The entertainment value of the habitat must mean something, as the humans were higher in the planetary food chain than even the eagle. The humans who truly respected the habitat took extra steps to preserve its sanctity. Both the eagle and the human understood it was important that their cohabitat remained sacred to an undocumented extent. Clearly, the eagle understood this principle better than the human, as some took unintended action to destroy the habitat, such as using chemical fertilizer on their plants for beautification, without considering the ramifications to various species of plants and animals that shared the lake. The eagle was not hungry on this specific day. The eagle would satiate his appetite privately on another day. It was not in his best interest to eat another animal out in the open for animals of various other species to witness. It did no good for the eagle to create fear. He would eat when his day came, and it would likely be the delicacy of a fish, which most successfully satisfied his hunger. And most likely, the other species would not witness the eagle taking its meal. In human interaction, it is common for a man to look at another asking, "How can this person help me?" Realistically, any man can work in concert with any other man if they mutually agree to work together on a project that benefits both. Theoretically, then, if any relationship is based on mutual benefit, which is shared by each involved, any man should logically be willing to have multiple differing types of relationships with other men or women. Why doesn't it always work like that? The answer is fairly simple. When the relationship begins, each usually shows some level of care toward the other. That will be good enough to get the relationship off the ground. Unfortunately, what causes relationships to sever is the lack of care or perceived lack of care on the part of either involved in the relationships. Sometimes it is good to sever a relationship because one or both parties determine that the original reason for the relationship no longer applies. This may manifest by one feeling as though he or she is spending too much effort showing a certain level of care, and the other shows little to nothing in return. Time changes circumstances and the people affected by them. And if one person consciously or unconsciously stops showing the same level of care as before, ultimately the other will most likely stop showing care back. What might have begun as something potentially great can easily be canceled. The eagle shows care on a regular basis to its habitat, although the entire habitat may not be aware. Even though the care may not necessarily be evident, the eagle still shows it because that is part of his nature. The other species become very worried when the eagle stops showing the same level of care.